In the year 1542, in the little Spanish village of Fontiveros, a frail child is born to a poor family. His name is Juan de Yepes. His father, once noble, had married beneath his class for love and was disowned. His mother, Catalina, worked as a weaver to feed her sons. Poverty, hunger, and humiliation marked John's childhood. He learned early that human dignity doesn't come from wealth but from love. He would later write, "Where there is no love, put love, and you will draw out love." From his youth, John was different, gentle, introspective, but with eyes that seemed to see past the world. He worked at a hospital for the poor, tenderly caring for the dying. When offered money, he refused it, saying softly, "God alone is enough." At 21, he joined the Carmelite order, drawn by their promise of contemplation and simplicity. But the order had grown comfortable and worldly. Prayer had been replaced by politics, and silence by chatter. John longed for something more, the God who hides in stillness. He studied theology in Salamanca, where his teachers marveled at his intelligence, but he sought not fame, only union with the divine. Then came St. Teresa of Avila, a fiery, fearless woman reforming the Carmelite nuns. She met John and recognized his spirit immediately. "God has given me a brother," she said. "A little man, but with a giant soul." Together, they dreamed of restoring the Carmelites to their original poverty and prayer. John founded the first monastery of Discalced Carmelites, poor, austere, and devoted to silence. They went barefoot to show they walked with Christ alone. But this reform enraged many in the older, wealthier branch of the order. They called John a rebel, an extremist, even a heretic. They accused him of dividing the order, of daring to change what had stood for centuries. On a cold December night in 1577, John was seized by armed friars. They dragged him through the streets of Toledo under cover of darkness. He was beaten, cursed, and taken to a secret cell in a Carmelite monastery, his own brother's house. The cell was barely 6 feet long, 10 feet high, with a single slit for air. He was given a tiny crust of bread and a cup of water a day. Once a week, they dragged him out, stripped him, and whipped him before the community for refusing to abandon the reform. Winter passed into spring. The cell grew stifling, the light vanished. He fell ill, emaciated, his clothes torn. He prayed, at first with words, then with silence, and finally with only tears. In the total darkness, something broke, not his faith, but his image of God. The God he once knew through study and feeling disappeared. What remained was a presence, vast, silent, hidden, but real. It was there, in that black cell, that he began to understand what he would later call the dark night of the soul. He realized that to reach God, the soul must pass through night. The night of the senses, the night of the mind. The night where all sweetness and clarity vanish, and one is left with only naked faith. He whispered verses to himself, composing poetry in the dark, committing it to memory since he had no paper. One dark night, fired with love's urgent longings. Ah, the sheer grace! I went out unseen, my house being now all stilled. This dark night was not despair, it was purification. The absence of God was only the preparation for his deeper presence. After 9 long months, John could bear no more. He prayed for deliverance, not for vengeance, not even for comfort, but for freedom to love and serve again. One night, the guards fell asleep. John quietly pulled the lock off the door with a wooden splinter he had hidden for weeks. He slipped through the corridor, heart pounding, barefoot on the stone. He climbed a wall, lowered himself with a rope of knotted blankets, and dropped into the cold air of freedom. He wandered through the streets of Toledo, dazed, near death, until he found the convent of the Incarnation, where Teresa's nuns lived. When they opened the door, they found him half-starved, with wounds and bruises, his hair matted, his eyes burning with light. The sisters wept. John smiled weakly and said, "I have seen the face of love in the darkness." While recovering, he began to write the poems he had carried in his heart from that prison, the spiritual canticle, the ascent of Mount Carmel, the dark night of the soul, and the living flame of love. They are among the greatest mystical works ever written. The language of a man who had walked through hell and found heaven within. In them, he describes the soul as a bride seeking her beloved, passing through deserts and silence, until at last she finds him, not outside, but within. O living flame of love! That tenderly wounds my soul. In its deepest center. Since you are no longer oppressive. Now consummate. If it be your will. Tear through the veil of this sweet encounter. His poetry was fire wrapped in silk, profound, delicate, and searing. In later years, John served as a confessor, teacher, and superior in various monasteries. He lived quietly, simply, always urging his followers to love, not argue. When conflicts arose, he would say gently, "Where there is no love, put love, and you will find love." His reform continued to spread, now recognized as a movement of holiness, not rebellion. But John never sought recognition. He preferred the hidden life, the interior flame. In 1591, John fell ill with a painful infection. He was offered several monasteries to die in, some comfortable, some poor. He chose the poorest, saying, "Where there is less comfort and more suffering, there is more love." During his last night, the friars heard him whisper verses of his poems. He gazed toward the crucifix and murmured, "I am going to sing the matins in heaven." Then, quietly, into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit. It was December 14th, 1591. He was 49 years old. John's body was placed in a simple grave, but his writings spread like fire across Spain and Europe. He was canonized in 1726 and declared Doctor of the Church, the mystic of the dark night. His legacy is not one of sorrow, but of flaming joy, the joy that comes when nothing remains but God. In the evening of life, he wrote, "We will be judged on love alone." The same love that carried him through poverty, imprisonment, silence, and death. The love that burns without consuming. The love that is God Himself. St. John of the Cross shows us that holiness is not light without darkness, but light found within darkness. That the soul's truest freedom is not escaping suffering, but discovering God hidden within it. When everything is taken away, when all beauty fades and every answer is silent, what remains is the whisper, "I am yours. You are mine. And this is enough."